Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going deep on a figure you might not immediately think of when you think of Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
His paternal grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley.
hmm
Um, and you sent over some really cool stuff on her. And honestly, I don't think she gets enough attention.
Right.
So we really want to understand why this seemingly background figure was such a constant presence and really how much she influenced the king.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things is, we know Elvis, right, as this huge cultural figure.
Right.
But to understand Minnie Mae, I think it's really helpful to start with her early life because it gives us a really different perspective, right?
Yeah.
So Minnie Mae Hood, she was born in rural Mississippi back in 1890.
Wow, that's
Yeah. So her family, they had deep roots there. Going back to the 1830s, I mean, totally different world than the one that Elvis would later be a part of, right?
completely, yeah.
And even just looking at the 1900 census, I mean, it records her at 11 years old speaking English, but unable to read or write. It just kind of highlights how different things were educationally, especially for someone in that time and place.
Yeah, it's easy to forget those things.
Totally.
It makes you wonder, she came from this big family, rural Mississippi. How much do you think that foundational experience, like growing up in that environment, how much do you think that shaped her values and the kind of support she later gave to Elvis?
Well, that's such a good point. And, I think one of the things to consider is, she marries Jesse Presley in 1913. They have 5 children, including, Elvis's dad, Vernon.
Right.
They live in Mississippi for about 10 years. And then there's this period of separation before their official divorce, which doesn't actually happen until 1954.
Wow.
But even before the divorce is finalized, she moves in with Vernon, Gladys, and a young Elvis. So you're already seeing, even before all that legal stuff is settled, those family bonds are super strong.
Yeah, definitely. It speaks to like a support network, that I'm sure would have been so important as Elvis's, career took off and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's get into her relationship with Elvis specifically, right? She moves with them to Memphis, late 1940s. She lived with them in all their Memphis residences, and then eventually at Graceland until she passed in 1980.
Wow.
And that's a long time. And, Elvis called her Dodger, which is so cute.
It is, yeah.
And Linda Thompson, who we talked about before, used the term inordinate affection to describe the relationship.
Right.
So I think it really highlights that it went beyond the typical, grandparent-grandchild kind of love.
Yeah, and there's this story about her accompanying Elvis to Germany during his military service. And remember, this is after his mother's passing.
Right.
So he's going through this huge life change, and he specifically wanted her there. It makes you think about the specific kind of comfort she brought, especially amidst all this pressure, the fame, the personal loss. There's even this image of her serving breakfast to him and Vernon in Germany. I mean, talk about a grounding presence.
It's so sweet. And, there are all these little details, too, like Elvis remembering her buttermilk biscuits or how the nickname Dodger came from a childhood incident with a skillet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would even gift her jewelry and ask her to embroider his initials. Even Lisa Marie and Priscilla, they both talked about visiting her at Graceland.
Wow, it's really remarkable the stability she offered him. I mean, his life was anything but normal.
Right.
But she provided this constant, steady presence. And, it's important to remember she wasn't just this perfect grandmother figure, Like, there's this story about her being disruptive on a flight in 1975. It reminds us she was a real person with flaws and all.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about, this woman who started in rural Mississippi and then ended up in urban Memphis. Lived in all kinds of places, rooming houses, Lauderdale Courts, then Graceland. That trip to Germany really shows her commitment. And everyone describes her as energetic, hardworking, and resilient.
Right. Dodger. I mean, that name just says it all.
Yeah.
But then her memorial inscription calls her a gracious lady, a precious mother, a virtuous woman with a quiet, sweet, gentle, and humble spirit. It makes you wonder if maybe people saw different sides of her.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, who knows what she went through in her life?
Exactly.
But, I keep coming back to those core traits, her resilience, her energy. It seems like her influence was less about, directly shaping Elvis's music career. It was more about that unwavering support, that emotional bedrock, especially after his mother passed.
Right. I mean, that's why he wanted her in Germany.
Exactly. It just speaks volumes.
It really does.
Yeah.
She passed away in 1980, buried at Graceland with the rest of the family. It really marks the end of an era, doesn't it?
It does.
And her story really underscores how important family is, even for someone as famous as Elvis. So thinking about Minnie Mae's life, her resilience, her journey, what aspect of her do you think had the most lasting impact on Elvis?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, someone to ponder after we sign off here.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for helping us dive into all this.
Yeah, it was great.
Until next time.
See